all the disclaimers out of the way that we normally do while we're waiting everything to get going. Let me get the camera adjusted just a little bit here. Okay, so this is a weekly live broadcast. If this is your first time here, well, welcome. Thanks for joining. We do this pretty much every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central, unless something gets in the way and I can't make it for some reason or another, which happens from time to time. But for the most part, I'm here Thursday nights, 7 o'clock Central. Give me a second here and we'll get going. I do want to give the normal disclaimers that, this is just an Ask Me Anything session, so I don't have a topic planned out. You guys ask me questions. I do my best to respond to the questions, and just keep it family friendly. That's all I ask. Don't bring up political stuff. We don't need to get into that. Don't be hateful with anybody. Don't be rude. Don't be cussing at us. Any of those kinds of things, we'll have to kick you out. So, all right, let's get into it then. Good evening to you, Herman. Good to see you. And Freezer says hello. Hello to you, Jupiter. Hope you're doing well. I am doing well. Thank you very much. Hope you are too. And Glow says, hey, good night, Chris. My doe had 7 kits, about 14 days old. I found 2 dead a day apart. They look like she stand on them for a reasonable amount of time. What could be the cause? Available space? I mean, it could be. I mean, who knows? If she's, let's see, your doe had 7 kids. Is she a first-time mom? That'd be the question I would ask, because if she is a first-time mom, sometimes there's a little bit of an experience that goes along with that. It's unusual for them to step on their kits and kill them at 14 days old, especially. I don't know the whole situation, what's going on. So, if they're, they're with the mom, so they're probably feeding off the mom. That shouldn't be a problem. It's, sometimes you just don't know. It's hard to say. So I don't know if I could, I don't know if I could answer that question for you completely. I wish I had a better, answer for you, but I just don't. Sorry, I'm addressing some things here. Okay. I wish I could tell you exactly what it was that caused that, but like I said, sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes you just never know. You say she's not a first-time mom. She had 3 the first time. It's approximately the second time. Okay, so she's a second-time mom. Well, again, I'm not really sure what could be causing that. It's really, it's just too broad of a question to be able to answer. There's just too many factors that could go into that. There could be some kind of disease. There could be some kind of illness with them. There could be, like you said, it could have been the mother stood on them and unintentionally, for some reason, they ended up dying. I don't know exactly. I wish I could give you a better answer, but it's just too broad. I'm sorry. Arthur says, hey, Chris, any thoughts on raising chukar birds? I'm not real familiar with them, so I can't give you a whole bunch of feedback on them, honestly. If you want to do it, do it. But I don't know a lot about them, so I can't really give you a lot of tips or tricks or anything like that as far as feedback goes on them. I just don't know. That's not a bird I'm real familiar with. Heard of them, but don't know much about them. So, all right, Kasim, hello. I'm doing well, thanks. Hopefully you are too. Spencer says, yo, it's my man, Chris the Legend. Well, thank you. I appreciate the kind comments there. Jupiter says, hey, Arthur, I've raised a few chukars. Did you say chukar, chuckers, I can't remember how to pronounce it exactly. In my experience, quail are way better for the meat and egg production. We keep the chukars around for their beauty. Their personality is very different from quail. So there you go. There's a little bit of feedback on it. Hello to you, Timothy. And Lisa says, hey, Chris from Connecticut. Hello to you, Lisa. Thanks for joining. Jupiter says, chukar egg laying is pretty sporadic, but it's tasty meat. All right, there you go. There's a little bit of feedback for you on that. Hello to you, Keisha. Says, hello from Cayman Islands. Hope your family is doing well. Harvesting for tomorrow. Well, thank you. Hopefully it's nice there in the Cayman Islands. It's a place I'd like to visit someday. And good luck on your harvesting tomorrow. Hopefully that goes well. Glow says, oh, I see, but I'm getting a feeling it's the available space. When should I remove the nest box? Good question. The nest box is really, it kind of depends. There's not a set time where you have to remove it necessarily. What I typically do is I pull the nest box out whenever the babies stop using it on a regular basis. So when you start seeing them outside of the nest box more than you do in the nest box, then I go ahead and remove it at that point. It could be available space, but it's never been a problem for me, and I've had big litters up to 10 in one cage, and I've never had a problem with the doe, stepping on them. But you never know; it could be. Where are we at here? Ria says, hey, Chris, we always spy your time and advice. Thank you. Well, you're absolutely welcome. Let's see, my little patch. Hi from Australia. Should or can you feed quail chicken feed? Can you feed quail? Oh, can you feed quail chicken feed? There we go. I got it now. Yeah, you could feed them chicken feed if you want to. It may not be the absolute best thing for them. It tends to be a little bit low in protein. I like a little bit higher protein for my quail, but it's not going to kill them. They're going to do just fine on it. They're not going to die from it or anything. You just may not get the optimum performance out of them as far as egg laying and some of those kinds of things, but it'll work. You can do it. Kasim says, hey, Chris, I have a doe. She's 20 days in pregnancy and she's not eating the way she used to. Sometimes they do switch their diet around a little bit. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Make sure she's got plenty of fresh water. As long as she's got plenty of fresh water, if a doe doesn't have access, or a rabbit in general doesn't have access to fresh water, they tend to not eat. So, as long as she's got plenty of fresh water, I don't know that I'd worry about it too much. Chances are she's just not hungry for whatever reason. My doe does that sometimes. Sometimes she'll just gobble up the food like crazy, and then other days she just barely touches it. It's just whatever. And my dog does the same thing. So, I wouldn't worry about it too much. All right. Hey, Zephin from Thailand, or from Trinidad. There we go. From Trinidad. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Penny says, hey, Chris, how you doing? I'm doing well. Looks like we're getting some cold weather coming this weekend. Yeah, I don't know. By we, if you're in the local area, yeah. Supposed to be getting pretty chilly this weekend. I think the high for Sunday is like 22 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. I think I saw something that said it was going to be single digits or below zero in the wind chill. So it's going to be a pretty chilly weekend, that's for sure. Ohio Valley says, I'm seriously thinking about pulling the plug on buying a GQF incubator, cabinet incubator, there we go, and hatcher. I'm wanting to raise bobwhites, but I'm a little worried about how long it's going to take them to get the ROI. Yeah, bobwhites are a little bit slow to produce. They're not the best producers in the world. So, I know that we've got a couple of people on the channel. I don't know if Rhonda's in here. I know Rhonda has raised bobwhites before. She's usually the one that comes in with advice on bobwhites when somebody brings them up. But you're right. I would be a little concerned on the return on investment on those as well. The other thing about bobwhites is if you live, I'm assuming you live in Ohio, I'm guessing, because you've got Ohio Valley in your name, you're going to have a permit to raise them because they're a native bird. Now, the permit's not difficult to get. It's pretty easy to get. So that's not a big concern, but it is something you're going to have to get. You're also going to have to remember, in order to sell them to people, they have to have a permit for them as well. So those would be a couple of things to consider with that. They're not, huge egg producers. So, your hatch rate, or not your hatch rate, but your incubation time frames are going to be a little bit sporadic because they don't produce nearly as consistently as like Coternics do, or chickens or something like that. Sorry, I get a drink here, clear my throat. So I'm not trying to talk you out of it necessarily. Those are just a few things to think about. All right, Spencer from New Guinea. Good to see you. Thanks. Owen wants to know how I'm doing. I'm doing well, thank you. And Rhea says, appreciate. Oops, did I miss a... Oh, I kind of figured you said spy your time. I figured that was something else. It was probably an autocorrect. Hey, good evening, Charles. Good to see you. Glow says, yeah, they actually be outside the nest box, but the way I haven't removed it, but the why I haven't removed it is because they bother her, so she tends to run around the cage until they stop feeding. Yeah, I think that's just part of being a mom rabbit. They will do that for sure. I don't know that the nest box being in there will, help or hurt that one way or the other. They're going to pester her either way, whether the nest box is in there or not. Maybe that's what happened to the ones that died, is that they were pestering her too much. Maybe she ended up kicking them off of her and just inadvertently, injuring them too much or something. It's hard to say. Good evening, Josh. Yep, all is well here. Thank you. And Zephin says, what are good pet rabbits for the tropics? Well, I don't live in the tropics. I don't raise pet rabbits, so I don't know that I can answer that one for you exactly, but I would think any of the pet rabbits would probably be decent. Holland Lops are a good pet rabbit, I think. Mini Rexes. There's a bunch of them out there. I'm not sure I can give you an exact answer on that because it's not my area of expertise. I'm sorry. Penny says, yeah, I'm the one who moved to Web City. Okay, yeah, from Web City. I was in Web City last week. That's where I grew up, went to high school in Web City. All right, hello from Ontario, Canada, Rod. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Christy says, good evening. First time catching the live show. I usually just watch it the next day. Well, thanks for joining us on the live broadcast and for watching them the next day, too. I appreciate that. John says, hey, from New Mexico. Good to see you, John. Thanks for joining. Christopher says, you need to get some bees. LOL. I've talked about that. I've thought about getting bees, but I haven't yet. We'll see. We'll see. Ohio says, I have the propagation permit for commercial. Okay, good. You already thought about that. You already knew that. Good. I don't know that I can add much to that. You know, it's just good luck if you decide to go that route. I hope it works out well for you. I know there's people that have done it pretty successfully, but I'm not, you know, a bobwhite expert on it necessarily, so I don't know that I can give you huge amounts of advice on that. Christy said, started quail and rabbits last year, found out that I don't like the quail meat and I don't want to eat rabbits, so selling the bunnies. We're almost neighbors in Anderson, Missouri. Yeah, Anderson's not far at all away. So, yeah, hey neighbor, good to see you in here in the live broadcast. I'm sorry that things didn't work out for you. I get it. It's not for everybody. I do tend to like that stuff. One thing I will tell you is that a lot of times if you don't like something, if you just kind of, you know, try to do some different things with it and eat it on a fairly regular basis, you kind of acquire a taste for it and you end up liking it. So I think a lot of the things that we don't like is just because we're not, you know, not used to them, so to speak. There's a lot of things that I think about that I used to really, really dislike, and now I really like them. So it is a matter of, you know, just not, I don't want to say training your taste buds, but introducing them to new things. You know, wild game is like that. A lot of people that have never eaten wild game really don't like it. But you know, as they eat it a little bit more often, they acquire a taste for it, and then it becomes something that they do like. So I get why you wouldn't like quail. I understand that. Excuse me. It is kind of it's a darker meat. It's got kind of a minerally kind of taste to it. You know, you can try to cook it in some different dishes. It does really well in things like fajitas, quesadillas. You know, just cook it like you would chicken quesadillas. Let's see, there's a couple other things, but it is a very lean meat as well. So I get it. If you don't like it, you don't like it, and that's okay. Zephin says, why is my Cali darkness fading? So I think what you're saying there is maybe he had really dark ears and they're starting to lighten up a little bit. Sometimes that happens as they get older. I think there may be something related to the heat, you know, when it's really hot out. I think that they kind of grow in a little bit lighter fur. I don't know that I can actually answer that. It's just one of those things that happens, and I've never really thought too much about it, so I never researched it. I'm not 100% sure why. All right. Tina says, bred rabbits for the first time, unsuccessful. Doe is grunting. Normally isn't the friendliest and has lunged before. She was not accepting. How many tries should we try before getting rid of her? Well, that depends on a lot of things. One would be, how easy is it for you to get another rabbit? Because if it's super easy for you to get another rabbit and you can get one that's a lot more receptive, that makes life way easier. You know, what I've found is that does that are reluctant to breed are generally always reluctant to breed. And you can sometimes, you know, you can work with them and get them to breed, but then the next time you try to get them to breed again, they're going to probably be reluctant to breed again. So it can be a little bit difficult thing for you to do. It's, you know, I know it's tough, but anyway, it's, you know, it just depends. Like I said, if you can get another one and she's going to be more receptive, then, you know, just do it because it does make life a lot easier. You know, I can't answer that for you exactly because it just depends on the situation. But I would, you know, as far as, let's back up a little bit. If you were going to say, you know, it's hard to find another doe, how long should you give her before you give up on her? You know, I would probably give her, you know, I'd give her at least 4 or 5 tries. You know, try to get her to breed. Go every single day if you can, once or twice a day, just for 10 or 15 minutes, see if she's receptive. The other trick is, you know, take her, put her in a car, like a pet carrier, stick her in your car and drive her around the block a couple of times and then put her in with the buck. I don't know why that works, but tons of people swear by it, so there's got to be something to it. So that's something else that you can try and see if that does get her to breed. All right, where are we at here? Susan says, hey Chris, thank you for all the help with my kits 2 weeks ago. They are doing well and I'm getting ready to rebreed. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, Susan. You're absolutely welcome. I'm glad that you found the advice helpful, and I'm glad that it worked out well. Hey, good evening to you, Nathan. Good to see you. Sillamore says, hey, Chris, and all from North Central Arkansas. It's not too far away either. Good to see you. And Glow says, all right, cool. Thanks for the information. Keep up the good work and great content as always. Well, thank you. Sillamore says, y'all hit the thumbs up for Chris. Well, thank you. Sillamore, I appreciate that too. Todd says, hey, Chris from Crete, Illinois. Went into lockdown yesterday with white wings from my shire. Very excited. Awesome. Well, good luck with your hatch. I hope it goes well. My shire is a great supplier, so you're going to hopefully have some really good results there. Kinfolk says, Chris, great video this week on quail laying. I think I'm going to put lights on my quail this week. Appreciate it again. Well, you're absolutely welcome. That's actually a topic. I forget these things. See, I've addressed, I think, just about everything you could possibly address with, well, not possibly, but for the most part, everything that you can address with raising rabbits, raising quail. But I forget that as I get new subscribers in, it's not always easy to go back and find those older videos when you're thinking about something. So, every once in a while when I start getting, people asking me the same question over and over again, I think, you know what, I need to address that in video again. And I've actually addressed the question about, why quail don't lay and the amount of light they need and all that. I've done that in a couple of different videos over the years, but I thought it was a good time to go ahead and readdress it. So I'm glad to hear that it was helpful and it worked out well for you. So, all right, Charles says, to all looking for California doe, I'm from west of Montreal. If anybody could help. Well, I'm nowhere near there, but I wish I could. Oh, see, is that? Yeah, west of Montreal, I think is what we're talking about there. There we go. So if anybody is in the Montreal area, has a California doe, then get a hold of Charles there. All right, Braden says, super excited for this weekend, butchering 20 males this weekend from my Shire Farm eggs. Well, awesome. Good luck. Hopefully that goes well. Brittany says, Chris, at what temperature are eggs still viable for hatching cold-wise, like below 50 degrees Fahrenheit? Yeah, you can get them below 50. I mean, the ideal temperature to keep eggs is going to be between about 50 degrees Fahrenheit and 65 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere right around in there. But if it gets up to 70 a little bit, it's probably okay. And if it gets down in the 40s, it's probably, in fact, unless they're freezing and cracking, it's probably going to be okay. I wouldn't worry about them too much, especially if you're not storing them there for long term. Like you're not storing them for a week at 30 degrees or a week at 35 degrees, let's put it that way, above freezing, but still 35 degrees. But if you are collecting them every day and it's gotten down to 35 degrees, as long as they didn't freeze, they're probably going to be just fine. I wouldn't worry about it at all. All right. Bob says, sometimes quails stay on the wire in the open side of the hutch during a single-digit night, while others, they are in the enclosed side. Should I move them manually to prevent them from freezing to death? I don't think I've ever had a bird freeze to death, and it's gotten very, very cold out here. They know where to go. They can get out of the wind if they want to. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I don't think it's an issue. All right, Nathan says, I'm from the UK and just started with incubating eggs. I've been watching all your videos this week. Thank you very much. It has helped. Well, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And good luck with your incubation. Hopefully it goes well. I've got a whole series on incubating eggs if you need it. If you go back to like my homepage on YouTube, you can go down. There's a playlist for hatching and storing eggs, and I walk through the incubation all the way through. So if you need it, it's there for you. Hopefully your hatch goes well. All right, Ann says, hello all. I had 7 new kits born this morning. That is a total of 22 so far this year out of 3 does. We'll be eating well. Yep, glad to hear that. Congratulations on your new rabbits. Rowena says, do you float test quail eggs before they go in the incubator or before lockdown? I do it before they go in the incubator. And if any of them float, like just float on the surface of the water, well, I throw them out. I don't try to incubate them. But that very seldom happens in eggs I'm going to incubate because they're fresh. That's usually older eggs that will do that. Now, sometimes you'll get some that sit up on end instead of laying down, and I just let them sit in the water for a few minutes and absorb some of that water, and they'll sink back down a little bit, and then they're ready to incubate at that point. But I never do it right before they go into lockdown. A couple of reasons for that is I don't want to put them into shock. So unless your water temperature is pretty close to the same as the temperature of the incubator, about 100 degrees or 99 degrees, I guess, there's a good chance you're going to send those eggs into shock by plunging them into, cold water. So I don't do it that way. But anyway, hopefully that answers the question for you. Jill Hall says, hello from Avila. My service keeps buffering, so it's a bummer. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I know where Avila is. That's not very far at all. And I can understand why you'd have bad service there. But thanks for joining anyway, and hopefully it's working well enough and you can enjoy the broadcast. All right, where are we at here on time? 20 minutes in already. Boy, time flies. All right, Manuel says, hey, Chris, just started with a mini Rex and Dutch rabbits, and your videos have been so helpful. Waiting to get some New Zealand, Californias, and Champagnes real soon. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that the videos have been helpful for you. Thank you for watching them. Those are great choices for meat rabbits. Not the mini Rex, of course, but the Dutches can be good meat rabbits, but New Zealand's, California, Champagnes are all going to be great choices for meat rabbits. So hopefully you can find some soon, and I'm sure they're going to do well for you. All right. Out of comments all of a sudden. We've taken a little bit of a lull here, so let me see if I can figure out something to babble about for a few minutes while we let everybody catch up in the comments section. Got the Super Bowl coming up this weekend. Chiefs' second time in the Super Bowl. I'm not a huge sports fan, but I am a Chiefs fan. Have always been a Chiefs fan just because I think I'm from Missouri. That's why, probably. And this is the first time in my life where they've actually been worth rooting for. 2 years in a row going to the Super Bowl. I'm kind of excited about that. We'll be watching it this weekend. I don't know if anybody else will be either. And if you guys are not rooting for the Chiefs, then it's okay. It doesn't hurt my feelings. It's fine. All right. Caden says, hey, I have scaly leg mites on my chickens. I bought Scalex for mites and lice. Do you know if this will work? I really don't have much experience with that. I think it's going to work. I mean, that's what it's for. So I don't see why it wouldn't work. I don't know of a better solution. I think ivermectin might be something that would work for them as well, but you've already got that. Try it out. I don't see why it wouldn't work. I'm pretty confident that it will do a good job for you. All right, where are we at here? Alex says, new to raising quail. What's your take on incubators that roll eggs on its sides? Eggs on its side. Incubator. Okay, I think you're talking about, I've seen some incubators where they have like a roller in there that rolls the eggs around, I think. That's fine. There's no problem with that. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's going to work just fine. Honestly, I mean, turning eggs is not really as complex as we try to make it out to be. You get an egg turner in your incubator and it tends to rock back and forth, very slowly or whatever, and that works great. But if you didn't have an egg turner, all you need to do is open the incubator up, put your hand on top of them, and just kind of roll them around a little bit. Not vigorously, but roll them around a little bit. I mean, that's what happens when the hen is hatching the eggs herself, is that she just moves around a little bit every once in a while, and that's what keeps the eggs moving around a little. It's not really that complex of a thing. So it's going to work fine. Brayton says, are you going to be raising meat chickens this year? That is the plan. I need to look into getting some chicks ordered pretty soon. I'm still, a couple of months out from whenever I want to start them. I don't want to get them in the dead of winter because, well, we're in February right now. I don't want to get them in, April 15th is our last average frost date. So I don't really want to have them before then. I'm not too worried about them in the brooder box. Once I get them, it's getting them to me because they've got to ship. And we get a lot of freezing weather in March and even in early April. And, I had birds shipped to me last year. The first batch didn't make it. They were all dead when I opened the box because we had a cold spell that came when they were shipped, and they just didn't live. The second batch did. They were fine. That was a couple of weeks after that, and we didn't have the cold snap. So I'm going to wait, probably try to get them delivered somewhere around late April, maybe even early May. We'll see. That just makes it a little bit easier to not have to worry about them freezing to death before they even get in the brooder box. But yes, the plan is to raise another batch of meat chickens. They're just fantastic. They're so much better than what you get at the store. They're bigger birds. We cooked a chicken this week from last year's batch, and we've still got several in the freezer. But let's see. I took the breast off of them, and I made chicken parmesan one night, and there was enough there to let's see, my wife, myself, my stepson, we all ate dinner. There was enough left over that my wife had lunch and I had lunch the next day from it. So there's 5 meals from just the chicken breast. And then, so we had the legs, the thighs, and the wings left over. So I fried those for dinner last night. And the same thing, we all 3 ate dinner, and there was enough left over for my wife and I both to take some to lunch. So 10 meals out of 1 chicken. Now there's sides with that. We had like green beans with the fried chicken, and pasta with the chicken parmesan, and but still 10 meals out of 1 chicken it's a pretty good deal. So it's definitely worth doing, I think. All right, Caden says, thanks. You have been 100% my inspiration to start raising and breeding quail. Well, you're absolutely welcome, and hopefully it all goes well. Thank you for watching the videos. All right, Leslie says, hello, greetings from Central Texas. I recently started following your page. New to rabbits, not good with palpitating. Doe due today, but no fur, just moving hay a little here and there. Any advice? Yeah, just be patient would be my advice. Make sure you got a nest box in there. First of all, thanks for watching the videos. Thanks for following the channel. I appreciate that very much. And secondly, just be patient. I know what you mean. You're not good with palpitating. Is that palpitating? Either way, you're not good with that. I'm not good with it either. It's incredibly hard to do. Very tricky. Just not easy to do. So if she's moving hay around, and when you say moving hay, I'm guessing what you're saying is like the hay stash thing where she's picking it up in her mouth with it hanging out both sides and walking around with it and stuff. She's probably getting ready to have her babies. So just be patient. I would go out and check on her every couple of hours if you can. I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't have them tonight. As far as not pulling any fur, my rabbits usually don't pull any fur until right after the babies are born. So that's usually how I can tell that the babies have been born when I'm going out and checking on them, is there's a bunch of rabbit fur everywhere. It's not always the case. Sometimes they'll pull them a little bit before, but most of the time they're not pulling any fur until the babies are actually born. So you'll make sure you got a nest box in there. I'd keep an eye on her, go out and check on her every couple of hours. What you're really making sure is that she's had her babies in the nest box, not on the cage floor. If she has them on the cage floor, pick them up, put them back in the nest box as quick as you can. She won't abandon them. You don't have to worry about that. But there's not much else you have to do. Just kind of check on her every once in a while, see if she's had her babies or not. But if she's moving hay around, that's a good chance that she's getting ready to have them pretty quick. All right. Terry says, hey, Chris, can quail eggs get too cold during shipping? By the way, you have a great channel. Thanks for all you do. Well, thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm sure they could get too cold. I don't know how big of a concern that is. As long as they don't get down below freezing, like I said, I think they're going to be fine. And I don't think that, shipping them, I don't think they're going to get below freezing. They're going to get cold, but I don't think that that's going to be a big problem. Now, one thing you will want to do is when you get the eggs, you're going to want to set them out and let them get up to room temperature before you put them in the incubator. You don't want to take them from like 40 degrees to 100 degrees like that. You want to give them some time to acclimate and settle in first. So I always put them in the egg turner and just set it. I don't turn it on. I just set it next to the incubator, let them set for 12 hours or whatever, usually overnight, and then set the egg turner in the incubator the next day, plug it in, and start incubating. All right, where are we at here? Lola says, do you know how to make a rabbit pelt? If so, can you do a video about it? You're talking about tanning a skin, I think, tanning a pelt. That's not something I'm super experienced with. I've done it before, but it's been a very, very long time. I might experiment with that again. Here's one thing I will say is that the reason I don't really tan pelts is that, well, one, it requires some time, requires a lot of time, actually, a little bit of effort. And not that I'm lazy, but I'm kind of busy and I don't know that I want to dedicate the time to it. And the other one is really because, when I'm processing rabbits, they're usually about 8 weeks old. And those pelts really aren't good for much of anything except for like craft purposes. It's a good skill to learn, so you could argue that it's a good thing to do just to learn the skill and get good at doing that. But they're not good quality furs, so they're not something that you're going to be able to make a lot of clothing. I mean, you could. It's just not going to necessarily hold up really well. But yeah, let me see what I can do. Maybe I'll do that at some point, and I'll do a video on it, and I'll be kind of rusty at it, but that's okay. You guys can learn at the same time I do. There is a pretty good method of doing that with battery acid, basically. Pickling the skins, more or less, is what you're doing. I'm trying to think. I think Rise and Shine Rabbitry has a blog post about how to tan the skins, and it's got pretty good instructions on it. So you can go check there if you don't want to wait on me, because who knows if I'll ever get to it. But yeah, who knows? Maybe it's something we'll do at some point. All right, Manuel says, can I give my Can I give any supplements for my milking does with litters right now? You can. Excuse me. You can give supplements, but you probably don't need to. One of the things that you might be able to give her is like calf manna. That's a pretty good supplement for does in milk. You probably don't need to as long as you've got a decent rabbit pellet, a decent diet. One thing I will say is that once she's had her babies, keep her feeder full all the time. Give her as much as she wants to eat. Spencer's saying be sure to give plenty of vitamin D. That's not a bad idea either. A little bit of vitamin D, but you probably don't need to give any other kind of supplements to her. I never do with my rabbits, and they do just fine. But again, as long as you're feeding a decent rabbit pellet, it's probably not something you have to worry about. All right, Braden says, oh, sorry, it's been like our low 40s. I'm just about to start. Okay, what are we talking about? Oh, sorry. I'm not sure what you're saying sorry to. I'm lost on that, but whatever you're getting ready to start, do it. Great. Hopefully it works out, and no need to be sorry. Penny says, Cackle Hatchery in Lebanon, Missouri is a good hatchery and close, so less travel time to get to you. You know, that's a good point. I wasn't familiar with them. I'll have to check them out in Lebanon. That's not that, I mean, I could drive over there and pick them up. That's only like an hour and a half. Yeah, about an hour and a half away. Maybe 2 hours. But it's not that far, so I could definitely do that. That's a nice area of the country if you've never been to Lebanon, Missouri. It's a pretty nice area. Eternal, thank you for the advice, by the way. I appreciate that. I'll check into them. Let me type that in here so I don't lose track of that. Yep, look at that. In Lebanon, Missouri. What do you know? Close enough to go to. Thank you. All right, Arthur says, I have Genesis 1588 Hovabator, seems to be working good, but only got 50% hatch rate from shipped eggs. I'm sorry to hear that, Arthur. There could be a lot of reasons for that. The Genesis, the Hovabator 1588, it's a good incubator, but it's going to be susceptible, just like all others are, to maybe temperature fluctuations. So there's a couple of things that you might want to look at. One, make sure the incubator is calibrated, that it's actually incubating at the temperature it says it's incubating at. And the way I do that is get a couple of non-digital thermometers, make sure to calibrate them and that they're accurate first. I always get 2 because I don't want to be guessing, is it the incubator or the thermometer that's right? So you throw those in your incubator, you run it for a little while, and then you've got 3 basically thermometers that you can verify that the incubator is correct. The incubator itself and the 2 that you put in there. And if any 2 of those read the same temperature, then those are probably the right source. And if it's the 2 thermometers you put inside, let's say that you've got the incubator set to 100 degrees and they're reading it at 98 degrees, then that means you need to probably bump up your heat a little bit, and you need to incubate at like 102 degrees to get it to actually be 100 degrees. Hopefully that makes sense. The other thing is, make sure it's not sitting in like a window or over a heater vent or, in a drafty area where it's going to be, I had a problem one time. My hatch rate was way down. I couldn't figure out what it was, and then I realized I had to sit. I look over to the side. You guys can't see it, but this is where I incubate eggs, over here on the side right here, and there's a window right there, and I had the blinds open. So in the afternoon, when the sun would go across, it beat down on that incubator and heated up, and it caused my hatch rates to really, really decrease. Once I closed the blinds, boom, hatch rates went right back up. So the same thing with a heater vent or an air conditioner vent or a fan that's blowing on it. That's probably not a big deal, but try to get in a fairly temperature stable environment, and that might help with that too. Hopefully that advice helps. All right, Night Runner says hello from Tillamook, Oregon. Hello to you. Thanks for joining. Manuel says, what age can I feed my kits hay? Whenever they want to start eating it is fine. Really, you don't want to necessarily start feeding your kits something at a certain age. Just feed the mother whatever you normally feed her. The kits will start eating that food when they're ready to start eating it, but they're not weaned at that point. They're just starting eating it. And usually they'll start sampling her food somewhere around 2.5, 3 weeks old. And you don't want to completely wean them off the mother and give them nothing but that until they're at least 6 weeks old, but you don't have to hold anything back. So if it's something that the mother eats on a regular basis, that you've been feeding her on a regular basis, don't change, and they'll start eating it whenever they're ready to. That's the easiest way to do it. All right, Spencer says, be sure to get plenty of vitamin D. Okay, that was a comment about the to give supplements to your rabbits. Yars says, I've heard a lot of people that die of the virus, but had a lack of vitamin D. It's important to have vitamin D these days because it helps combat the virus. Vitamin D is important for you. I don't know how it plays into combating the virus, but that would make sense. I mean, vitamin D is a really important vitamin. So, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I can't answer that one. Or can't comment on it, I guess. Gavin says, hello from Redmond, Oregon. Hello to you, Gavin. Good to see you. Jill says, Midwest Ag and Carthage will order chicks from Cackle. There you go. Makes a close drive, and you don't have to worry about shipping. There you go. That's a good idea, too. Midwest Ag and Carthage. Really? Let me check that. Yeah, look at that. Midwest Ag Supplies. Look at that. You guys are helping me out. I appreciate that. All right. Tony says, hi from Hobbs, New Mexico. Hello to you, Tony. Good to see you. Eternal Fitness says, hey, Chris, love your channel. What are your thoughts on feed containing genetically modified soy? I haven't really looked into it too much. In general, I don't like the idea of genetically modified plants, probably not for the reason that everybody thinks. The biggest reason I don't like the idea of genetically modified plants, I really don't find it that much different than like selective breeding and all those kinds of things where you just naturally modify things over time. But the reason that things are genetically modified is to is so you can spray them with Roundup basically and not kill the plant but kill the weeds. So it's for like weed control, which in theory sounds great, but then that means the plant's being, is taking up Roundup, whatever the chemical is. I can't remember the name of the chemical, glyphosine or something like that. Anyway, so that means that it's getting into the plant itself, and then, what that goes into food, and then we eat that and we ingest that into our body. So I don't think it's great. I don't think it's like the worst thing ever, like some people make it out to be. But if you can avoid it, I think it's probably best to avoid it, but I don't know how. I mean, if there's nothing else available, I wouldn't worry about it too much. All right, Christine says, I give my nursing does a treat when I feed them Cheerios. They love it, and the bunnies love them also when they are old enough to start eating mom's food. Any reason why I shouldn't feed Cheerios? I can't think of any right offhand. I mean, don't make that their main diet, of course, but I don't see any reason why you shouldn't give them treats of Cheerios. It's not a sugary cereal, so it's not, you don't have to worry about it from that standpoint. Another thing rabbits really like, sunflower seeds, black oil sunflower. Those are good treats for them too. And good to give them in the wintertime because they're real high in fat, so they'll help keep them warmer and stuff. But yeah, I don't see any reason not to give them to them. I think it's fine. All right, the Lala Farm. Hello there from Northeast Florida. First time on your live. Well, thank you for joining. I appreciate that. And hello to you too. I guess Florida's probably pretty cold right now too, or cold for Florida anyway. I was going to say from warm old Florida, but you're in Northeast Florida, so it's probably not that warm there right now. Laylo says, what do you think about chuckers? That's the second person that's asked me that tonight. I really don't know much about them, so I can't really comment. It's nothing I've looked into too much or researched enough. I really don't know. Gavin says, I'm 14, just hatched 14 Culinary quail. They're almost a week old. I wanted to know when to start decreasing temperature in the brooder and when to move them outside. Good question, Gavin. First of all, congratulations on your hatch. Okay, so when to move them outside, when to decrease the temperature, it depends on a couple of things. What's the temperature outside? It's wintertime here, so it's pretty cold. I wouldn't be moving them outside until they're at least probably 4 weeks old. Now, in the summertime, when it doesn't get below 70 degrees at night, then, I move them out as soon as they're fully feathered out, somewhere around 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks old, somewhere around in there. I start decreasing the temperature at, when they start to get feathered out. So usually a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, somewhere right around in there. Then I'll just back off the heat. It's 100 degrees in the brooder. I'll bump it down to 90 degrees, something like that, and just watch the birds. Initially they'll want to huddle under that heat lamp and try to stay warm. But usually within about a day, they start spreading out and they get a little bit more comfortable with it. And then you can back that off about a day and a half, 2 days later, back it off another 10 degrees until you get down to, whatever it is outside and they're acclimated to that outside temperature or close to that outside temperature. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Now, again, I don't know where you're located, how cold it is there. You might give them, at least 4 weeks or so right now because it's probably pretty chilly wherever you're at. and give them a little bit of time before you move them outside. Hopefully that answers it. All right, Connie says, come on, hit the like button. Larry? Okay. Thank you, Connie. I appreciate that. And there's a plain speaker from North Alabama. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. A. Jones says, hey, Chris, checking in from the northeast tip of Ohio. Awesome. Glad to see you. Thanks for joining. Black Jesus says, hi, I'm planning on bringing mini lops to Nigeria because, I wonder, is it Black Jesus or Black Jesus? I don't know. Either way. Planning on bringing mini lops to Nigeria because we don't have them here. I'm wondering if their heat tolerance isn't drastically different from the standard rabbits. By the way, I need mini in Florida. I need mini in Florida. Okay. I'm not sure what you mean you need mini in Florida. If you're in Florida and you're planning on taking them back to Nigeria. And as far as their heat tolerance goes, I'm not incredibly familiar with mini lops. I don't think they're drastically different in heat tolerance, but I really don't know. I don't keep pet rabbits, so I don't keep mini lops, and I'm not real familiar with how heat tolerant they are. Any rabbit's going to struggle a little bit with the heat. It's just the heat's harder on them than the wintertime, than the cold is. There are some rabbits that have been specifically bred to be much more heat tolerant. Tamuks are one of those that comes to mind. But again, I don't know specifically on Holland lops. You'll have to look that up, and I'm sorry I can't answer that one for you. All right, Rod says, hey, Chris, I just checked on my kits and noticed one had nest box eye infection. How do you usually treat that? I gently push the infection out and clean the eye with diluted hydrogen peroxide. I don't know if I'd use peroxide on their eye. Ugh, that sounds sounds painful to say the least. But if it worked, it worked. It will do a good job of killing the infection. Usually what I find with nest box eye, what I usually do is I brew a cup of chamomile tea. I keep the tea bag, put some honey in there, brew a cup of tea, and then I use that tea bag, stir it in there, squeeze it out the extra, and use that to clean their eye out. Basically, like you said, push the infection out, kind of. Clean their eye out. And usually I do that for 2 or 3 days in a row, and it's usually cleared up at that point. If it's really bad, you may need to get some kind of antibiotic eye ointment. Don't use anything with painkiller in it. Painkillers are generally toxic to animals. But an antibiotic eye ointment can be used to kind of kill the infection. But usually if I do that, the honey's got a lot of anti-inflammatory, antibacterial properties in it. And it usually does a pretty good job of cleaning up everything and taking care of it. It's usually not a big deal after a couple of days. All right. Eternal Fitness says, unfortunately, most of the feed here in the UK has GM stuff in it. Any chance you could have a video on making your own organic feed? Thought it would be great, as I haven't seen any video on YouTube on it. I don't know that I'm not the expert on making your own feed. There is a good book I can recommend to you called Beyond the Pellet, if you're looking at making your own feed. And it talks about feeding your rabbits like a completely natural diet, not feeding them the rabbit pellets that are commercially available. It may be a little bit extreme from the standpoint of the rabbit pellets are bad, they're evil, they're bad. They're not. But if you're looking at getting away from that because of something like, genetically modified organisms or plants or whatever, anyway, ingredients, then that might be a good resource for you, is Beyond the Pellet. And now here's one thing you're going to have to realize. Whenever you do switch away from pellets and go to like a natural diet where you're feeding them plants and things like that, that it's fine. They're going to do just fine on it, but you are going to get probably a slower growth rate out of your kits. It's just not as protein packed, specific, I guess, to get the optimum growth rate out of them. So anyway, check that out. I don't know that I'll ever get to doing a video on that because I just don't have the time. You can also look at fodder. Fodder is a pretty simple way to feed. Look at like barley or wheat or something like that. It's not really that complex to grow. It's pretty easy. And you just supplement them every once in a while with something else to make sure they get the vitamins and all that kind of stuff that they need. But that's a pretty easy thing to do. You can look up videos on growing fodder. It's not hard. It's pretty easy. It's a lot like growing microgreens or something like that if you're familiar with that. All right. Black Jesus says, I'm looking for mini lot breeders in Florida. Any recommendations? Oh, okay, I got what you're saying now. I don't know. I don't know any breeders in Florida, so I don't know that I can help you out with that. But maybe somebody in here might. They might know. I don't know where to point you on that one. I'm sorry. Gina says, any good advice for first-time breeder? Oh boy, that's a broad topic. I mean, I don't even know where to start with that one. There's a whole bunch of advice I could give you there. I don't know if there's something specific you're having problems with. Well, here's a couple of things I will say. You always take the doe to the buck. Don't ever take the buck to the doe, because does get very territorial about their cages, and they could castrate a male. They tend to fight very hard with if you bring a new rabbit to their space. They can do a lot of damage to them. So take the doe to the buck, not the buck to the doe. I always monitor the breeding. I don't ever leave the doe in there for more than 30 minutes, and I always watch them, just keep an eye on them. There are times where the bucks are a little bit over anxious, and the does get fed up with it, and then they start fighting. And again, they can do a lot of damage to your buck. So those are a couple of things. It's not a common issue, but it is something monitor them and watch. Try for 3 good fall-offs whenever you try to breed. That's about it. It's not really that complex. You get a couple of good fall-offs from the buck, 2, 3, whatever, and you can pretty much guarantee she's pregnant. Count down 30 days, about 3 or 4 days before that. Just start checking to see if she's hay stashing. Just take a handful of straw, throw it in the cage. If she scoops it all up and it hangs out both sides of her mouth and she walks around the cage with it, it'll be real obvious. Then stick a nest box in there and start watching her pretty close for the babies. That's kind of a quick rundown of it, but I've got lots of other videos on it if you need them. And if you have specific questions or specific problems, you just let me know. So either my wife is home or there's something outside. The dog is super excited. I don't know. Give me just a minute here. Let me see. Nope. I think it was something outside that he just wanted to bark at. So, all right. Plain Speaker says, I saw something about heat-tolerant rabbits from Texas A&M, the Texas A&M breed. Yeah, that's Tamuks. T-A-M-U-K is what they're called. And they're basically a New Zealand white, but they were bred to be much more heat-tolerant. So I'm actually on the lookout for some. I'd like to replace my rabbits because my doe is aging out anyway, and my buck's getting older too, so it's a good time to go ahead and replace them. And I'd like to get some purebred Tamuk rabbits and have those on hand. So I'm kind of on the lookout for some. I find them every once in a while, but just haven't gone out to get some. So anyway, Christy says, this will be our first year starting a garden. Going to have to look up some of your older videos for garden prep. We'll be making any new garden videos. Yeah, it's getting real close to time to start doing some gardening, so I will start making some videos on gardening again whenever I start gardening again. The one thing I will say is if you're going to be starting up a garden, the thing that I would do right now is if you have the ability anyway, tarp it out, or start it off with like sheet mulching, lay down cardboard, lay down some good organic material like straw or something like that. A little bit of manure if you have it on top of that, and then a layer of compost about like that on top. And you can do that right now. And then cover that up. Make sure you cover it with something, whether it be landscape fabric or a tarp or something like that. If you don't cover it, nature will. It'll start growing weeds and things like that through it. But yeah, cover that up, and then you just plant right into the compost. So, generally speaking, a lasagna garden or a back to Eden garden, as they're sometimes called, they use like wood chips as mulch on the top of them. But I found that didn't work well for me. I mean, it did great the first year, but eventually the weeds grew up through the wood chips, and you've got to keep replacing that wood chip layer on the top. You've got to have a pretty thick layer on top like that. So I've switched over to using a good porous landscape fabric, and that works great. You just punch a hole through it or burn a hole in it or whatever and put your plant right down through the landscape fabric, and it works great. I don't have to worry about weeds growing up or deteriorating or anything like that. But the other concepts are just basically the same. It's just organic material, manure if you have it, or just straight compost. And then even if you do no manure, compost on top of that. You can go layers and layers and layers if you want to, but I never found that much necessary. Cardboard's great, though. Lay that down first. That'll really keep your weeds suppressed while everything else starts to break down on top. Anyway, that's a little bit of advice for you on starting one, but again, you can do that now. You can go ahead and get it ready, because then it'll be ready to plant into when in the spring. You could do it and then just plant right into it, but it'll be even better if you just let it set for a little while and kind of start to break down a little bit before you plant into it. So, all right, Rowena says, can you use honey and chamomile and quail too? Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't. I'm not sure what you're wanting to treat on them, but yeah, I think that would work pretty well. I don't see, I mean, small wounds, scratches, those kinds of things, it should be fine. To live is to suffer says, what kind of feed do you use for your rabbits and your quail? Well, the rabbits, I use a rabbit feed. I like I use a 19% protein rabbit pellet. I get it from one of my local feed stores. The quail, I feed them a game bird starter, a 30% game bird starter that I get from a local feed mill. Fairly local. It's a little bit of a drive for that one. But those are the, there's not much you have to worry about with that. A good game bird starter with quail, I think the higher protein's good, so anything over about 25%. Make sure it's got about 1.5 to 2% calcium. That's plenty for their diet. With the rabbits, a 19%, 16% rabbit pellet, that's going to be just fine too. Joe says, hey, Chris, good to see you. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. Roy says, hey, Chris, hatched 9 baby quails, wondering, have 2 that are kind of blonde. Are those from the blue eggs? Think they're called Celadon quails. Just want to say you rock, learning from you. God bless. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Roy. The blonde ones are going to be white birds, more than likely. They're just from white birds. Now, they may be Celadon, they may not be. Celadon is a gene that causes them to lay like a green-blue egg. But that can happen in any bird. That gene can be carried by any of them. So I've had, jumbo pharaohs with the Celadon gene that laid blue eggs. They look just like every other of my jumbo pharaohs. I mean, there was no way to tell them to depart. So you can't really say, who knows? They may be the Celadon birds, they may not be. It's hard to say. All right, Aaron says, glad to see you're well. Well, thank you very much, Aaron. I appreciate that. Michael says, I'm late. Hello from South Texas. Yeah, you're late. We only got about 10 minutes left, but that's okay. We don't keep track of attendance here. Says, hello from South Texas. Just set my first set of MyShire eggs this morning. Excited about the new hobby. Had a couple of eggs that were double the size of the rest. Any thoughts? Usually those double size eggs are going to be double yolk eggs, and they're not going to hatch. I'd be surprised if MyShire would send those to you, though, if they're really double yolk eggs. I think they would. Who knows? But usually your double yolk eggs don't hatch. Sometimes they do, but the mortality rate's pretty high in the birds that hatch from those eggs. Not always. Sometimes it's just fine, and who knows? Maybe they may just be a slightly bigger egg for whatever reason. It's hard to say. MyShire is a good supplier, so chances are you've got pretty good. You're going to have pretty good results, assuming that your incubation process is all down and all that kind of stuff. Gina says, hey, Michael, from South Texas too. What kind of quail? There we go. Okay, I think you already saw that. Gator says, I don't have any questions tonight, but thanks for the show. You are absolutely welcome, Gator. That's okay. Thanks for joining, and I appreciate you being here. And Michael says they're jumbo. Says, do they come in different sizes? That's what we are raising. The birds, well, you can get jumbo birds or standard birds. Jumbo birds are quite a bit bigger. What is your problem, pup? He's wanting to, he does this at night where he just wants out every 5 minutes to go bark at something. There's never anything out there. But anyway, quail do come in different sizes. There's jumbos, and then there's standard sized birds. The jumbos are considerably bigger than the standard sized birds. And then, of course, there's all kinds of little in between their sizes that they come in. Jumbos and standards are kind of the two. Like if it's above, I think, 10 ounces, above 10 ounces is a jumbo bird. Below that is a standard size. I'm not sure. I can't remember. All right, Jupiter says, I didn't order one of your solar lights, but I'm curious how things are going with that. Did you ever get them manufactured? I did a small order of them. We did a group. Let's see, a group of people did prepay for them, and I did a small order of them. We're still waiting for them to come in. I did say at the time it was going to take several months. It was probably going to be April or so before we got them. So I'm following up with the manufacturer just to make sure things are on track. But so far things look good, and they should be right on time. April, May, maybe March, even. I don't know yet. We're going to see, but they should be on track. And I ordered a couple of extra ones, so I may have a couple of extra ones. I may do a giveaway with one. Who knows? We'll see how it goes when I get them in. All right. Michael says, I'll let the big eggs go with the rest and keep y'all updated in a couple of weeks. Thanks for your thoughts. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, let us know if they all hatch. It would be, I don't know, if you get like Siamese twin birds or something, that would be cool, but that's probably not going to happen. So hopefully they go well. All right, how are we doing? 5 minutes left, but the comments have died down here. I'll get a drink real quick and see if something else comes through. Where are we at here? Gina says, you're so welcome. I'm not sure if you're talking to me, but if you are, thank you. Sometimes conversations go back and forth between you guys, which is fine. It doesn't bother me a bit, but I get lost in them and try to figure out what's being said to who. All right, Michael says, helpful videos. You're one of the reasons I'm starting my new hobby. Thank you for what you do. Well, you're absolutely welcome, Michael. Thank you for watching the videos. I'm glad that you're finding them helpful. Jupiter, you have a good night too. Thanks for joining, and God bless you as well. And guys, I guess that means it's time for me to wrap it up. Things are starting to slow down here a little bit. I got things to do anyway. Get ready for one more day of work. Thank you for watching, Rowena. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. You have a good night too. So I'm going to go ahead and end it right here. We'll just wrap it up. It's a good time to do that. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. I'm always look forward to this every single week. We will see you guys again, hopefully next week. So God bless each and every one of you, and good night.